Flory Bidunga looked like a pro today, and Kansas knocked out Notre Dame by 10 points. We're going to break that game down and also preview the KU-Syracuse game.
You are Locked On Jayhawks, your daily podcast on the Kansas Jayhawks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on? Derek Johnson here. This is Locked On Jayhawks, and thank you for making the Locked On Podcast Network the #1 sports podcast out there. On today's episode of the show, we are going to recap KU's 71-61 win over Notre Dame. Flory Bidunga, too big basketball, took off for KU. We're also going to get into a little preview of tomorrow's game for Kansas against Syracuse, who looked pretty good in an overtime loss against Houston. Today's episode of the show is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the FanDuel Sports app today. So Kansas wins 71-61 against Notre Dame. They moved to 4-2 on the season, and it was a game about the big men for KU. I know Tre White obviously contributed in a big way, and he was really solid for KU with 16 and 9. And, Council gives you 12 points. But this was a game about the two bigs for KU. Bryson Tiller, 17 points on 8 of 15. He was 8 of 10 on 2-point shots, 9 rebounds. And then Flory Bidunga gives you 18 points on 8 of 15 with 9 rebounds and 5 assists. And the combination of the two of them also wound up getting Kansas a bunch of blocked shots. You got 5 from Flory. You got 1 extra from Bryson Tiller. So they were the ones who kind of dominated this game for KU. And it just so many moments throughout the game. I mean, the fact that you were able to get 35 and 34 minutes out of Tiller and Flory respectively is pretty incredible, especially after Tiller was in foul trouble early. That's going to be kind of what carries this season for KU. Even when Peterson comes back, those guys need to avoid foul trouble, and then they can be efficient players. But especially when Peterson's not back, they need to do that, and we saw the effectiveness. I mean, the shot-making ability of both players around the rim and around the lane, and some of the developments of Flory in the offensive game are pretty incredible. Tiller had a really good game. I really enjoy watching Bryson Tiller, but Flory is a freak, in the best positive way of saying it. The play where he gets the blocked 3 and picks up the loose ball, drives it down. He's getting bear hugged. It's an intentional foul. He still makes the shot nonetheless. He gets 2 free throws, makes them both. Then on the inbound play, they eventually get him the ball and he scores on a tough make. Basically a 6-point play. That is a freakish play. Some of the moves that he had on the block that you didn't see last year, or just the ability of honestly, one of the craziest things I think that is going to probably go, unrecognized in the game. At the end of the game, I forget the exact score at the time, if KU was up 8 or up 10 at the time, but there was a minute, maybe a little less than a minute to go. KU was inbounding, and Notre Dame's just pressing them, trying to get a steal at the end of the game, and if not, they're going to foul. KU, I think, had to use a timeout. Then they come back and they are kind of stuck. Who do we throw the ball to? And in most situations, the last thing you would ever want to do on the inbound pass is throw the ball to your center, because that would usually just be you're done for. They're going to get a turnover, or they're going to foul him and he's going to miss free throws. Instead, KU throws the inbound pass to Flory, in the corner too, which is even worse. And Flory just handles it with poise easily, passes it up ahead, pitches it up ahead to the perfect guy, who then throws it up ahead. And I forget who got maybe it was Melvin Council had the dunk off of it. But regardless, you don't see that. And it's just, there's so many moments with Flory right now that are happening where you're that is not a normal thing that a center does. And it is really fun to watch. It was a little inconsistent at the beginning of the year for Flory. It's starting to be, hey, this dude's going to be in the NBA next year from Flory. It is really impressive, the streak of play that he is putting up right now. I would say that beyond that, some of the biggest positives for KU, it wasn't a great 3-point shooting game. You shot 30% from 3, but I think at one point you were 1 of 10, so you would have finished 5 of 10 at that point, and you hit some key ones and big ones in the second half. It really felt like as you were kind of moving from the end of the first half into the early to middle parts of the second half, you were constantly up like 4, 5, 6, 7. And it felt like the difference of you being able to kind of push that out, kind of have that kill shot, kind of bring it out to a double-digit lead, was the inability to hit one of those key threes. They started finally hitting them, and they were able to overcome a bit of a Notre Dame push and then eventually win, by double digits. And I think that was important, that this doesn't have to be a great three-point shooting team, but you still got to hit some. You can't just, go over there. Beyond that, the defense was another positive. Again, for KU, 61 points allowed, 34% from the floor for Notre Dame. They were only 17% from three, which, part of that, they maybe missed a few shots that they normally make with some good shooters. But part of that, too, is KU's defense, forcing you into deeper threes, forcing you into, maybe an extra hand in there with length and wingspan and athleticism. You're going to get a contest a little bit better than a team who doesn't have some of those things. If we are looking at some of the negatives from the game, I think the injury bug would certainly be the biggest one that you would point to and say, obviously Darryn Peterson was already out coming into this game, so that didn't change. But, even like Tre White at one point got hit in the face. He's like bleeding everywhere. His white jersey is covered in red. Fortunately, they had a backup jersey, or they had some, great Clorox or something going on in the locker room. And they were able to, overcome some of those things. Like Flory at one point was kind of just like holding his back. But the one they weren't able to overcome in terms of the player being able to play through the injury was Jaden Dawson. And I guess he hurt his like wrist, his arm or something in warmups trying to dunk it. So that's not great, especially when Dawson was starting to come on. He had his season high in minutes for KU in the Duke game. He figured to have a pretty big role this week with Darryn Peterson out. And it's unfortunate for KU and for Dawson, right? Dawson has an opportunity for extra minutes with Peterson out to take advantage and show himself, hey, I deserve to be, playing big minutes or in the rotation. And now that might not be possible. We'll wait and see what the x-rays say and how, likely he is to potentially come back. And then beyond that, it's like a standpoint from Kansas, you're really thin on some of the shooting guards and those sorts of things. So it makes things a lot tougher if you're Kansas now. And it basically means Kohl Rosario has to step up now. Marco Jackson, you are given a role. Jamari McDowell, you're going to be playing now. Do we even see Giangallo at some point? Who knows? Beyond that, I would say that you only forced 5 turnovers. I would have liked to see that number a little better. We look at Kansas being such a good team at, running in transition and scoring when they force a turnover. You'd like to see them get more than 5. Now, it is a little tougher against a team like Notre Dame, who, if you're taking more threes, you're not throwing as high risk of passes necessarily, right? A lot of times turnovers might come from you driving, the ball gets stripped, or thrown in the post, and there's a double team or something. Also, Notre Dame plays a slower tempo, so they're going to be more under control. But that is something that, especially as I looked at the Syracuse game, it's going to be more important. Can you force turnovers and get those easy buckets, especially when you're playing a team that, is going to limit you in the half court? But I think the biggest moments and plays of this game, it was that, Flory block the 3, grab the ball, get the basically 6-point play out of it. That's the obvious play of the game. If we are to mention some other ones, though, the sequence where KU had like a billion blocks might have been a goaltender too in there too, but that was certainly fun. I think Notre Dame actually ended up scoring on it. They got like all the offensive rebounds, but that was certainly fun. There was a moment where Notre Dame was pushing. It was 59-54. Tre White hits kind of a step back 3 at the top of the arc. That was a key moment for KU. Jamari McDowell hitting a 3 when it was like, again, with Dawson out, you're counting on him to play a role. Okay. He contributed in that way. Just a lot of fun moments in this game. And I wouldn't say it was a ho-hum win for Kansas, but it wasn't one that you necessarily sweat, especially down the last couple minutes of the game. And I think that's a good thing when you were without Darryn Peterson, because when you look at this game, and this will apply for the Syracuse game too, they are a bit of litmus tests, right? Obviously, you hope you get Darryn Peterson back, and then once you get him back, you hope he's there for the rest of the season. But there is the question of whether it's, without Darryn Peterson, if there, is more to it or whatever, or if it's just the question of, what is this supporting cast alongside Darryn Peterson? What is the ceiling? What is the floor for this team? Part of those questions become, what is the team without him? And if you can beat Notre Dame like you did today, and you can beat Syracuse after that, that would certainly illustrate to me that even without Darryn Peterson, you're an NCAA tournament caliber team, and then you throw Peterson into the mix. That's where you have the potential to become something special, right? And so that was why I think today was certainly important that you beat Notre Dame's not. I don't think they're a top 25 team in the country or anything like that. But by one media outlet, like 9th of the 18 teams, so like a decent team in the ACC. Without your best player, like I'm not going to complain about a 10-point win when your best player is out. So I think it's going to be tougher against Syracuse. We just saw what they did against Houston. We'll get to that in segment 3, but let's continue on the conversation. KU Notre Dame recap. We'll get to our stat of the game, awards, and we'll give out some game balls. This is Locked on Jayhawks. Today's episode of the show is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. NBA is back along with college basketball, and there's no better place to get in on the action than with FanDuel. It's the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or want to ride that hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who's going to score next to who's going to make that fourth quarter comeback. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. And right now, we got feast week going on with college basketball this week, so college football winding down to the end of the season. This is a great week to get in the action with FanDuel, and they're giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head over to FanDuel.com, sign up, play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA and the Locked On Podcast Network. Thanks for joining us on this episode of the show and making the Locked On Podcast Network the #1 sports podcast network. Our stat of the game that defined the KU Notre Dame game, you had 8 blocks. 8 blocks is a huge number to have in any game. Kansas is actually averaging around there, so like they're having pretty incredible block numbers, which, makes sense. Flory's really good at blocking shots. He led the Big 12 in block shots last year, even though he was coming off the bench. Bryson Tiller has a long wingspan. You got guards who are athletic or have both long wingspans. So just really cool to see how that is having an impact for KU. I think another stat of the game, Notre Dame being 4 of 24 from 3 for a team who relies on the 3-point shot, that's going to kind of define the game. That's going to make it tough for them to win a game like this. And then I would say the other one is a 16-6 in assists. Kansas was moving the ball well. And I think that's part of it too. When you look at the 3-point shooting, Notre Dame being 4 of 24, okay, they had 6 assists. So how much of that is because the KU defense was doing a good job of forcing Notre Dame's threes to not be as high percentage of shots, whereas KU was moving the ball well and getting those assists? I think that does tell at least a little bit a story of the game. Our awards for the game, we're going to give out our Dog Food No Fear Award in honor of Melvin Council, and he's going to actually get the award along with Jamari McDowell. There was a moment there where Melvin Council was like missing all his threes. I don't know if he started 0 for 3 or 0 for 4. I think it was 0 for 3. And they were clanking a couple. And it was actually like there was a stretch where I want to say he missed 2 threes within like a few possessions. They were relatively close together. And he got another open 3 look. I think it was the shot clock winding down. But there was like no hesitation for him. It was like, okay, I missed the first 2, whatever. I'll just take the next one. And obviously there are certain times that can get you in trouble, right? You end up with a game where you're 0 for 8 or something. But I'd prefer to go down swinging that way, right? Especially when you're without Darryn Peterson, especially when you're a team that maybe doesn't have as many great 3-point shooters. It's like I remember the old Auburn teams with Jamari Smith a couple of years ago, and it was like, why is he not shooting more? You have this like 6'10" dude who's making all these shots, and their guards are just like chucking up shots. In some games they'd get hot, other games they'd go 0 for 8. That's not what Kansas has right now. So you need to keep taking those shots. And the fact that he was not deterred at all by a slow start shooting this season or in the game, I just appreciate that, I don't know, like courage, I guess, to continue to take those. And kind of same thing for Jamari McDowell. Like he goes 1 for 4. That's his only made shot. And you're a role player coming off the bench who is being asked to play more with Dawson and Peterson out. It'd be easy to not take that 3 that he ended up taking and just, kind of hiding from the moment, right? And instead you accepted the challenge, you shot the 3 and you took the 3. So I appreciate that. And I think that's going to be important for Kansas moving forward. The Happy Learned How to Putt Award. If you've ever seen Happy Gilmore can crush the ball. And then eventually he learns how to putt. That's like what we're watching with Flory Bidunga right now. Actually, Flory joked in the, I hope it was a joke. I don't think Bill Self's going to be happy if it's not a joke. He joked, I guess I'll say in quotation marks, in the post game with the TV crew that he was going to talk to Bill Self about letting him take threes. Again, I don't think that would go well for either party there. But, he is just, it's incredible watching the growth. Like, we knew he was this springy athlete who could block shots last year. And we saw some of the flash plays. Like, obviously the 6-point kind of sequence here, Like you think back to the UCF game last year where I forget if it was a block or a steal, where he ends up dribbling it down the court and like throws down a dunk. So like we've seen a little bit of that before. But it's the post moves too. It's the shots where he's hitting contested on a hook shot or kind of like banked in on the side of the lane. The one move that he had where he catches it on the right side of the block, right side from KU's offensive perspective, catches it on the right side, and he makes the defender feel like he's going to go to that left-handed hook shot, which is his kind of primary offensive game. And he's sweeping from basically the right to left, his right shoulder's closest to the basket. And it would, certainly the defender is like, okay, he's going to take that hook shot that I've seen him take so many times. And instead he pivots off of it, kind of does this little pirouette spin move off of that and lays it in the opposite side of the cup. And it's just the growth of his post game is really, really incredible. He's really fun to watch right now. On our offensive game ball for KU, we are going to give it to Flory. I don't know. I thought about giving it to Tiller with the 17 points. Tre White, good again as well. And Tre White getting 4 offensive rebounds, like that matters to this as well. But I'm going to give it to Flory. He leads the team in points, 18. Shot well, over 50% from the floor. He had 3 offensive rebounds, so he's getting you extra possessions. And this is the other one, like going back to that Happy learned how to putt. Flory can pass, man. Flory actually wound up leading Kansas in assists. He had 5 of them. He was throwing out of double teams. Like, that's just going to make KU more and more dangerous because you saw at times Notre Dame throwing doubles and then he'd sling it to the opposite side of the court or find Bryson Tiller for a dunk or something. So we're going to give it to Flory for the offensive MVP here. And then the defensive MVP, if you were just talking about the first half, like Marcus Burton for Notre Dame, very good guard, ended up with 24 points, 9 of 18 shooting. So I can't give it to Melvin Council, and it wasn't always Council on Burton. Sometimes like Marco Jackson was taking him and stuff like that. But in the first half, like it is worth mentioning, Marcus Burton was 3 of 11 in the first half. I think part of that was Melvin Council. So I'll give him an honorable mention for that first half defense. He also had KU's 2 only steals of the game, but we are going to go with Flory for the defense. Flory had 5 blocks. Like, what do you want me to do? I'm going to give him both. So that would also mean the overall game ball goes to Flory Bidunga. Okay, let's get into the preview of the Syracuse game next. This is Locked On Jayhawks. Thanks for joining us on this episode of Locked On Jayhawks. You can find our show anywhere you get your podcast, including on our YouTube page where you can like and subscribe to the show. And KU takes on Syracuse now. And Syracuse looked really good. It was a loss against Houston, but they end up losing in overtime. Houston's seen as one of the best teams in the country. I was really impressed with the orange in this one. So I don't think this is like you look at Ken Palm right now. It has Syracuse at 52nd in the country. I think there's a good chance. They actually started the year 68th. So like clearly they are moving up. I think there's a good chance Syracuse ends up being an NCAA tournament team. So take that for what it's worth and the value and comparison of this game. But Red Autry is the head coach for Syracuse. He's in year 3. They went 20-12 in year 1, 14-19, so took a step back in year 2. They went from 80th in Ken Palm in year 1 to 115th in Ken Palm. But again, now they're in that top 55. Little shortened preview here with the length between games. So we're just going to do 2 biggest strengths and weaknesses here. For the biggest strength, I think it's their athletic front court. This is a really athletic Syracuse front court, and it gave Houston some problems scoring inside. Like you think of Houston, you think of with Kelvin Sampson, they want to be rugged, they want to be powerful inside. Well, they shut down Houston on the inside. The reason Houston beat Syracuse is actually Houston hit 11 threes on 41%. Houston only shot 33% on their 2-point shots. So that should show you the kind of tenacity that Syracuse has inside, but it's the athleticism. William Kyle, 6'9", 230, freak athlete. He was like the defensive player of the year in the Summit League. I forget where he transferred to last year, and then transfers to Syracuse this year. Didn't totally work out for him last year, but now in a better spot, and he looks like that great athlete. Donnie Freeman is like a 6'9", kind of point stretch forward type who can kind of do it all. And gives them athleticism. Tyler Betsy at 6'8", 225. Sadiq White, 6'9", 195. Like Ibrahim Swear, I don't know the pronunciation, but like 6'9", 225. These are all guys who are springy athletes, and they are just a team that is going to run the bigs. They've got length. They're going to bother you on the inside. So very impressed. And I think that becomes really interesting with this matchup because Kansas has athletic bigs. So it's going to kind of be good on good. I don't know. Is that a good thing for Kansas? Because, I'm taking Flory and Bryson Tiller, in a way that I just really like that front court for KU. Or is that a bad thing? Because if it neutralizes in some way, does not having Darryn Peterson and that getting neutralized, does that become a problem for you? So I think that's going to be very interesting here. But that athletic front court for them, here's where it really shows off. They score 19 fast break points per game, right? Bigs running the floor. They are number 2 nationally right now in 2-point defense. Now, albeit before they played Houston, not really a murderer's row. They beat Binghamton, Delaware State, Drexel, and Monmouth. None of those are top 200 teams. And the Monmouth game, they only won by 5. But the Houston game is the one that matters the most, and they shut them down from 2. So I do totally buy into that. And then scoring inside, they're top 25 nationally in 2-point percentage offensively. So that's where you see all of those things kind of come together. Their other biggest strength is their chaos defense, which that also makes sense. If they're an athletic team, if they're a long team, you're probably going to force a lot of blocks and steals. That's been something Kansas has done well so far this season. That's something Syracuse does well so far this season. Right now, they're 17th in the country in block rate. They are 86th percentile or 86th in the country, in steal rate, and they are 24th in the country in turnover rate defense. So they force chaos. That'll be a key for Kansas, avoiding that chaos, avoiding turning the ball over and leading to those Syracuse runouts. Now you look at the 2 weaknesses for Syracuse. One of them is actually rebounding. That is one thing you would think, athletic front court. They're probably really good on the offensive glass. I don't know if that's a scheme thing. Maybe they just throw guys back and try to prevent you from, because they're not giving up a lot of fast break points per game. So maybe it's more of a scheme thing, at least on the offensive glass. Defensive glass, I can't really explain that, but they're 190th in the country in offensive rebound rate. They're only 222nd in the country in defensive rebound rate. So here's the problem. Kansas has not been good at getting offensive rebounds this year, but maybe this is the chance to do it. And then shooting has not been a thing for Syracuse this year. Again, there are a lot of similarities between these 2 teams overall, but Syracuse comes into this game. They are right now 241st in the country in 3-point percentage. They're only shooting 31.2%. And it's even worse at the free throw line. They are 364th in the country, shooting 56.1% at the free throw line. And that, honestly, I mentioned Houston won the game with their 3-point shooting. Honestly, you could also say Houston won the game by Syracuse ineptitude at the free throw line. Syracuse was 12 of 29 at the free throw line against Houston. That's 41% on free throws against Houston. So, do keep that in mind. If this is a close game late, there's a chance Syracuse could kind of boof up at the free throw line and give you a chance there. All right, our players to watch for Kansas, we're going to go back to the well. Flory Bidunga. It's the obvious choice, but I think it's the right choice as well. Flory has been excellent so far this year. He's on a heater. And with Darryn Peterson out, he kind of needs to continue to carry Kansas in a way. And it's going to be a much tougher matchup. It's going to be a much more style on style matchup for Flory. And so I think it's going to be interesting how he handles that and how he deals with that. Can you again avoid foul trouble? But Kansas needs Flory to, give him 15 to 20 points, give him 8 to 10 rebounds, play that strong defense on the inside. It's going to be so critical and important for KU again. For Syracuse, we're going to go with Donnie Freeman. Freeman is averaging 17.8 points per game. At least this is before the Houston game. These numbers have not updated, but 5.3 rebounds per game, 2.5 assists per game, 1 steal, and 1.3 blocks per game. So 2.3 stocks per game. This is a player who is just very good, and he does a lot of everything. Shooting 50% from the floor, 27 from 3, 78 at the foul line. Again, just does a little bit of everything for Syracuse and just a very, rounded player. Now, one thing that is interesting is that he did not play in the Houston game, so I don't know his status coming into this one, but if he goes, that's somebody to watch out for. Now, the other guy that I would mention, just in case he doesn't go, because again, I don't know the status of him necessarily, keep an eye on Tyler Betsy. Betsy had 16 points off the bench against Houston. He hit 4 threes. So for a team that doesn't necessarily hit a lot of 3-point shots, he's somebody to keep an eye on. And he is more of kind of a stretch forward. So he becomes an interesting guard for KU and for any team kind of going up against him. All right, the keys for the KU offense. I think you need to finally get some offensive rebounds in this one if you're KU. So Kansas came into the day, I don't know where it's going to update, but 18th percentile in the country in offensive rebound rate. but Syracuse is outside the top 200 in defensive rebound rate. And if you look at what Syracuse does well defensively, they limit shots at the rim. They make it hard for you to shoot at the rim. They force turnovers. Getting those extra possessions might be pretty valuable for Kansas in a game like this, especially when you're not a great three-point shooting team. So maybe this would be the game that you can kind of unleash that a little. I do get it is difficult right now without Darryn Peterson. And in terms of, I don't know, like, I know, I don't know. It's just one of those difficult things where when you look at the style on style here, it becomes more of an issue for KU in terms of like, okay, A, can somebody get hot from three, but B, if you're not getting those offensive rebounds, where are you finding your points? So I do think this needs to be one of KU's better offensive rebound games. For the KU defense, I think the interior defense needs to be, I don't know, A+, whatever. They came into the players era, did Syracuse 78% on shooting at the rim. Okay, so you have to find a way to defend at the rim without fouling. That's going to be the key. Maybe this is a game that Paul Mbia plays a little bit more. Who knows? And then our player matchup of the game, we're going to go with Kai and Anthony versus Kohl Rosario. With Dawson and Peterson hurt, they need good minutes from Kohl Rosario. And they haven't really got much on the offensive end the last two games from Rosario. But we know he's kind of a streaky shooter and a young freshman. Like, he could have 12 points one game and 3 the next. This would be a big game to, get one of those 12. Anthony's been a good player. And obviously, we don't need to bring up any past memories with KU against a member of the Anthony family, but that certainly adds a little intrigue there. And then our Hawks to soar here is Bryson Tiller. Tiller was really good in KU's players era opener. They do give up a decent amount of shots in terms of attempts in the floater area in the mid-range. And I think of Tiller being somebody who really operates from there. I could see Tiller having another, 12, 14, 15-point game for KU. All right, that'll do it for this episode of Locked on Jayhawks. You can find our show anywhere you get your podcast, including on our YouTube page where you can like and subscribe to the show. See you tomorrow for a KU Syracuse recap right here on LOJ.